Print servers in federal environments create risk and unnecessary complexity. Every new printer, location, or policy adds strain to infrastructure that was never built for today's demands. FedRAMP High Authorized Printer Logic eliminates print servers with a secure cloud-native, zero-trust solution designed for federal IT. With advanced security, centralized control, and simplified management, agencies can modernize print without added burden. See what secure serverless printing looks like. Visit Vasion.com to learn more.
Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
A new Pentagon pilot program will give some active duty service members a way to preserve their fertility before deployments, hazardous assignments, or long periods away from their families. Starting September 14th, eligible troops can be reimbursed up to $10,000 a year for egg freezing or $500 for sperm freezing under a 3-year program created by Congress. The Defense Health Agency will use the pilot to assess participation, costs, administrative burdens, and whether fertility preservation has an impact on military readiness and retention. Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen joins me with more. Rachel, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Terry.
This is really interesting. Who exactly is eligible for this program, and what do they need to do to qualify?
So the pilot is aimed at service members whose military duties could interfere with their ability to have kids later. So particularly those with upcoming combat deployments, orders to places that DoD lists as hazardous, so they would get hazard duty pay, or long periods of separation. So at least 6 months away from your spouse or the person you're dating, your domestic partner, what have you. So eligible troops can get paid back for fertility preservation services. It covers up to $10,000 per year for egg freezing and up to $500 per year for sperm freezing. So you have to either already have your orders or you have to know that they're coming up within like a reasonable amount of time. So within about 4 months. And then all of those services that you get have to be within the 3-year period. So if you start the program, in the last 6 months or so of the 3-year period and you're still getting procedures done after those 6 months, they won't cover them anymore. So it has to be within this 3-year pilot.
Why has fertility preservation become such a particular concern for the military?
Military service can create circumstances that make family planning more difficult or unpredictable. Deployments can expose you to hazardous environments, hazardous waste, while, frequent moves, long separations, just how demanding military jobs are in general can also make people push family planning off until later. And so the idea behind the pilot is to give people another option to kind of preserve their choices and not force them to choose between serving or having kids.
The program allows troops to use civilian fertility clinics, including those outside the TRICARE network. How is that going to work in practice? Are there potential challenges with access or timing or even cost?
Yeah, the flexibility is important because fertility services aren't always available at every military treatment facility or through TRICARE in every location. So giving service members the option to use civilian providers frees up, those choices, but they still have to, navigate the same reimbursement process. And, you still have to be eligible in the same way as somebody going through an MTF would be. Timing can also be an issue because fertility preservation requires appointments and procedures and all of that have very specific timing, and they have to be coordinated around deployments, other family obligations, other military obligations. So you have to know that you're going into a stretch of time where this is possible.
The reimbursement levels are significantly different for egg freezing and sperm freezing. Do you have background information on why the cost differential is so high there?
Yeah. Egg freezing is more involved, more expensive. It's more difficult than sperm preservation and retrieval, right? So it involves medications, you have to be monitored, ovarian stimulation, and then the actual egg retrieval procedure itself. Whereas, sperm cryopreservation is comparatively straightforward. So that $10,000 annual reimbursement cap is designed to cover, a much larger expense, although whether it covers all of it kind of depends on person by person basis and the services that they get.
both of these gamete freezing processes would presumably wind up in an IVF process for the woman in these partnerships. Does the plan cover the cost of IVF?
No, it actually specifically says this doesn't. The pilot program isn't extended to other reproductive health procedures, including IVF. So if you want to do that, you still have to, go through the same process that you would do if you did it today or last year.
And if the partner is not pregnant by the time the 3-year pilot period is over, do they bear the cost then of continuing the maintenance of the frozen sperm or eggs?
Yeah, you would. So if your gametes are still frozen, right, and are still in storage, you would have to pay for that on your own. Shipping them elsewhere, if you move and you don't want to keep them wherever they are, you'd also have to pay for that out of pocket. But, it's designed to take the edge off at least a little bit, right, instead of having people foot the entire bill.
Well, that will be a really interesting feature of the 3-year pilot. So what will DHA be looking at in terms of readiness and retention impacts? Do they have a vision of what success looks like here?
Yeah, they're looking at whether or not this is a meaningful benefit for people without creating excessive costs or burdens for DoD, right? So can we offer this to people without bogging ourselves down in financial need or, a lot of red tape around it? So they'll be looking at things like participation, its effect on readiness and retention to see if it's worth it. But, also if people actually think that it's useful to have and if it's accessible to them. So if it demonstrates that cryopreservation helps the military retain people and people feel that it is supporting their family planning goals, then, it could provide the case for making that benefit permanent.
That's Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen. Rachel, thanks for bringing this up to us.
Yeah, anytime.
You can find Rachel's full story at federalnewsnetwork.com.